Hello and welcome back to 1992, where myself, Dan Bardell, and journalistic legend Jonathan Wilson preview the Premier League fixtures every single week. We know our three main games. We know that we're going to predict all the games, but that's all we know because the show is unscripted, as it has been for the last month or so. I say it's unscripted, Jonathan. One of the main reasons we do that is because we like to catch up with you and find out what your week was like and hear about all the niche things that you've been doing. Have you done anything niche since we last spoke? Any museum back? Any teddy bear cupboards?
Have I done anything niche? I went to Chelsea on Tuesday. That was not niche, but it was. I
Good
think
game.
again revealing just how physically dominant the Premier League teams are.
Yeah, I thought that.
The Barcelona, the first 20, 25 minutes, you thought, oh yeah, tidy enough. They could cause some problems. Though actually, the only real chance they had was Chelsea messing up with the back. But then, from the midpoint of the first half, Chelsea absolutely battered them physically. Fernandes had all those chances. Estevao, I thought, was sensational. There were two really, really high quality 18-year-old right wingers on that pitch, and I think Estevao was clearly on Tuesday night was clearly the better one. I went and did my job at Chelsea. I covered Leeds v Villa on Sunday, which
what a day! What a day!
Well, actually, that was another game where one team was physically dominant, but that team blew themselves out after about 40 minutes, and then once Daniel Malin come on, it was a totally different story. And Saturday, I went to Cambridge, which was nice, visiting a relative there, and I had a look. I mean, the weather was terrible, but that just meant we spent the day in a restaurant and a pub, and it was no 5G in Cambridge. Remarkable.
None at all.
Well, very, very patchy. So in some ways it was good because I couldn't follow Sunderland's miserable defeat at Fulham. But yeah, extraordinary. They talk about that sort of the UK Silicon Valley, that band from Cambridge to Oxford. Get your 5G sorted first, mate. Come on, you're going nowhere with this.
Was it 4 or 3?
It was 4. But 4's not good enough
4G.
anymore. Like modern 4G is not as good as 4G used to be. It's a lie. That's what it is. It's a scam. Talking of lies and Wi-Fi, OpenReach booked to come between 1 and 6 on Tuesday. Did they turn up? No, of course they didn't. Absolutely.
No, Jonathan's internet still patchy.
The world's worst company. Just absolutely the worst people on earth. So when we finish this, I'm very much looking forward to a call to BT to see. I don't know if people know this, but if OpenReach promise to come and they don't turn up, you get £32.50. And for every day after you've signed a deal with BT to kind of upgrade your broadband, for every day after the first appointment where it's not fitted, you get £6 something. Now, I think they've capped it at 60 days now, but I got in before the cap because I've been trying to get this fitted since July. So basically, I think I'm owed about £900 by BT. I slightly fear they'll give me a credit on the account because I really just want to close the account and move to somebody else because they're an absolute shambles. So I know nobody listens to this, literally. But if anybody from BT or OpenReach is listening, I hate you and you're a disgrace.
Do you want a wage, though, at this point? You can put in your CV, BT, at this point, can't you? You're effectively earning a wage from them.
I mean, £42 a week is not that much. I mean, I know that our ambitions for this podcast might slightly differ, but I'm open for more than £42 a week in a fullness of time.
I just had a mini power surge. Then did you see that?
I did see that.
My lights went off. Luckily, my laptop. I suppose nothing went off that was necessary. The internet looks okay. Still better than your internet, even if it goes off. I've done podcasts with you for years, and I think OpenReach are making your internet worse because it never used to be this bad. They are. It's a good job for the local recordings because I think OpenReach are doing something to your internet.
Like this, yeah. I mean, nobody uses them. They're just the most frustrating people on earth, and they lie to you. They just lie. Oh, we had an emergency.
No one likes a liar.
Sixth successive emergency, and this emergency meant your phones didn't work, so you couldn't call me. I mean, come on. Oh, we did come, but we couldn't get access. What, a doorbell? Like, you can't work a doorbell? You can't knock? Like, anyway.
Bad times. Bad times in Jonathan's manner, but it's great times in Jonathan's prediction league because, Jonathan, you got 11 points, which takes you into treble figures, takes you up to 101. Despite getting Villa score bang on, got very little else right. I got 6 points. So I'm only on a measly horrible 87 points. So you are starting to run away with it a little bit now. I'm going to have to stop predicting centre back scoring at this point, I think.
Yeah, it's odd though because it balances out that. So I had that week when I got 5 first scorers, and which was 3 weeks ago. 2 weeks since I haven't had any, not a single one. And
I've struggled as well.
this week's, I think, 2 weeks ago, I think I got eight results right, but no scores or one score. This one was based on getting 3 correct scores. So um, I'm doing it always at the minute. It's total predicting.
Yeah. I mean, very well done to you. I'm absolutely delighted for you and your success. Let's see how we get on this week, because of course we will predict the score for every Premier League game, as we always do. But our main focus this week, actually, before we get into it, I just want to focus on the fact that you finally called Sunderland to lose and they lost. You've obviously predicted them to lose every single week, and they finally did.
Yeah, delighted. No,
Really pleased.
the nature of football is that unless you're really, really good, you will lose sometimes. And I think Sunderland have had that in the post. They got away with a couple of games. They didn't play well against Everton. I mean, obviously they played well in a very specific way against Arsenal. But against Fulham, it was all pretty flat. They didn't really. I think they really do struggle for creativity. I think that's slightly gone under the radar this season. Uh, their strength is a defence and the aggression in midfield. But every now and again, somebody will put in a brilliant cross, as Fulham did, and Val Jimenez will score. So, it happens. They got a little tricky run now because they got Bournemouth at home, Liverpool away, City at home. So those are 3 games where they could play quite well and get nothing. So I think we're seeing the sort of the reset that those of us who actually look at the fixture list have been predicting for some time.
I was a dig at my predictions then, but I'm not sure it was. It just felt like one.
No,
Maybe I'm
it's just
paranoid because my predictions are so bad at the moment.
a lot of people will be going, "Oh, yeah, Sunderland are flying, they're playing," but the fixtures were very much winnable. Fixtures came early, and now they've got the back end of that. It's a bit like that Iraola's first season at Bournemouth, and I don't think he won any of his first 9 or something, first 8.
8 or 9, yeah.
But I'd seen them a couple of times that run. They were playing pretty well. It's just they had a load of hard games first, and then the second half and first half of the season they got the easier games, and because they kept their confidence high and they carried on playing exactly the same level. They're just playing more winnable games, and I think they won 6 out of 7 or something like that. And everybody said, "Oh yeah, Iraola's methods of setting." And maybe it's a little bit of that, but fundamentally they're just playing easier games. And then, the second half of the season, the same thing happened. They went in this bad run when they were playing loads of good teams, and then came strong again at the end of the season. So, the fixture list makes a big difference. I think we underestimate how much difference that makes.
I did beat Chelsea at Stamford Bridge and did draw with Arsenal, who are pretty good, aren't they? Arsenal and Chelsea. So they did pick up some results in there against the harder teams, I guess. But I guess the positive thing from Sunderland is that the points are on the board. So even if they lose a few games, they're never going to get sucked into any form of trouble now, which is
they
a
could
positive.
do. They absolutely could do. They're only 8 points off relegation zone. If they don't get any points in the next 3 games, I mean it's 3 games with now. Obviously, there's quite a lot of teams punched in there, but they could easily find themselves sort of 13th, 14th by the end of the year, and then suddenly there's a bit of pressure on those games in the new year. With losing 7 players for the Cup of Nations as well, which
true.
I mean, a few of them you can say, well, it's not really a position where they're short of players, but left back, we're losing their 2 best left backs, and that could be a problem.
Yeah. Fair point. I'd be amazed though if they were ever in any serious danger, given the start that they had. Let's talk about. Well, let's start with in our massive previews. Let's start with Chelsea against Arsenal. Then, Jonathan, the top 2. Whoever would have seen this coming? Who would have called Chelsea as the title favourites at the start of the season?
Well, only somebody with great perspicacity, somebody prepared to take the brickbats from the critics. As people jeered as they drew against Crystal Palace, saying, what do you know? If Fofana had been fit from the start of the season, then well, they'd probably be closer than they are. But that's made a big difference, him coming back in. They've got a bit of experience and solidity at the back. I think in hindsight, they probably are slightly short defensively, and I'm still not convinced by Robert Sanchez.
Oh no.
But it's such an odd team because it was so good on Tuesday, and you saw Maresca's tactical intelligence, using Neto as centre forward to his pace behind Barcelona's high line. That worked really well. So there's a lot of the elements there. Estevao looks astonishingly good player. I guess the only problem is he and Palmer, I think, probably want to play the same role, which is, and maybe Palmer will develop into more of a number 10, but at the minute I still prefer Palmer coming off the right. So I don't quite know how that'll work as and when Palmer's fit. I think even though he hasn't played a huge amount, Jamie Gittins has been promising signs from him. I think he's got 4 assists
last couple
already.
of weeks.
So he's actually being used in the way young players should be used. The odd game here and there, coming off the bench, learning his trade, which is something that Chelsea haven't really done. Enzo Fernandez, I think, is in great form at the minute. Caicedo, Reece James had really good games on Tuesday. So there's a lot to be positive about. And I mean, it's an absurd statement given how the game went, but had Arsenal lost to Tottenham last Sunday, then Chelsea would have gone top with a win on Sunday. So, are they their main challenges? I mean, the league table suggests they are. I still think they're a bit inconsistent. I think if Fofana were to get injured, they'd fall off again. But they could do the rest of the league a favour by winning on Sunday and reducing the gap to 3 points. And if City win, maybe we do have a bit of a title race again.
Yeah, not beyond the realms of possibility for Chelsea to win at Stamford Bridge at all. We mentioned earlier, they just blew Barcelona away really on Tuesday night. Had a difficult start against Burnley. I thought Burnley started the game really well on Saturday, but then Chelsea kind of settled in and won the game relatively comfortably. In the end, you picked out a few players just then in your Chelsea blurb. Mentioned Palmer's best position maybe will become the 10. I'm like you. I like him from the right as well, especially if you've got an overlapping right back. But when Enzo's got 2 midfielders behind him, that guy he looked like the complete midfielder on Tuesday night. I thought he's very, very, very dangerous. I had him down as when he first came as like a deep lying ball playing midfielder, but actually the way he gets into the box is clever movement. I thought in the first half an hour in particular against Barcelona, he dominated that game. And when he's got 2 midfielders behind him, he's just got this knack of always being in the right place, whether it being kind of to receive the ball or to get on the end of things.
Yeah, I think he's an incredibly football intelligent player. And I offer that caveat because a couple of months ago, actually not even that long, 6 weeks ago when I was in Argentina, I spoke to his old maths teacher. So she taught him and Julian
Is there anyone
Alvarez.
you didn't speak to when you were in Argentina?
Yeah, any players. Like River were on a really bad run, so they were really grumpy and very difficult. But his old maths teacher, I mean, she clearly had a lot of affection for both Alvarez and Fernandez. And Alvarez, I don't think it comes as a surprise, was the more studious, the more academic. So I said to her, if they hadn't become footballers, what jobs do you think they'd be doing now? And she goes, "Oh, Julian, he was, he's very bright, worked very hard. He could have gone to university. He could have got a professional job. He could have been a lawyer or worked in a bank, something like that." And she goes, "Enzo, she's well, he really liked hitting things, and maybe he could have been a drummer." So that's music's lost is football's gain, but I think his positional awareness is really good. I saw quite a lot of him at Benfica before he joined Chelsea. I was really impressed by him then. So that was before the 2022 World Cup. I think it was that group stage that autumn, wasn't it, when he suddenly sort of emerged. And like you, I thought he'd be a deeper lying player, and I thought he was one of those rare players who had the capacity to play as a 6 or as an 8. But it turns out he can play as a 10 as well. So I think he's 100 million quid looked like a huge amount of money, but actually I think he's probably worth it. I think I think he and Declan Rice are probably the only £200 million players. Maybe there was Caicedo over 100. He wasn't he? So
Caicedo was 100, yeah.
yeah, you put Caicedo in that bracket as well. So Enzo, Caicedo, and Declan Rice, I'd say the £300 million players who probably are worth it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Grealish was 100, wasn't he, at City, but had one very good season, but probably three iffy seasons. Probably wasn't quite worth the 100 million. But I had doubts that Enzo was going to be worth 100 million pounds, probably even this time last year. But now I just watch him and think he's incredible. And to have, I guess, if you spend 100 million pounds each on two midfielders, that they should be good, but that isn't always the case. And Caicedo is brilliant. Reece James, again, dropping into midfield was brilliant against Barcelona as well. Just on Esteval, like you mentioned earlier that Gittins is being integrated slowly. Probably the same thing could be said of Esteval as well. But when you watch him play against a team like Barcelona, you do think he's kind of ready to be unleashed a little bit more now. Would you expect him to play against Arsenal?
Oh God, yeah, he's brilliant. I mean,
You think so?
yeah. No, I think he's really, really very special indeed. I think he look. It's very early, but I think he may be the player Brazil hoped they had in Neymar. I
Oh,
think
really?
incredibly quick feet, smart, quick. He's strong as well. And actually, obviously, the temptation on Tuesday was to contrast him and Lamine Yamal. And Yamal's he's obviously a brilliant player. And this is not to do Yamal down. He everything he does, there's an air of class about him. Even when he's walking off being substituted after 80 minutes, looking pretty frustrated, he does it with class. But Cucurella physically got on top of him. Whereas Estevao, the goal he scored, who was it? It was Kubasi and Balde just bounced off him. So partly that was his quick feet, that he gets a run at them. You can go either way. They're both panicking, but they actually both sort of end up hitting him, and he keeps going, and they bounce off. He's really strong. So
Mm.
he's not a Haaland clearly, but as wingers go, as 18-year-old wingers go, he's really powerful. So yeah, I think he scored in his last 4 Chelsea starts. He scored in both Brazil games in the international break. I think he probably will be a starter for Brazil at the World Cup. I think he's 18. You've got to be careful with him, but you don't rest him against Arsenal. You play him against Arsenal because he could win that game.
It's a hell of a finish as well, wasn't it? On his weaker foot, isn't it? His right foot, but it's a hell of a finish to lash that home.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I hadn't seen him in the flesh before. I think that was the first time I'd seen him live. And there's not many players who the first time I've seen them have been so exciting. I know it was the first time I'd seen Lamine Yamal live as well. So I went to watch Yamal and I came away
Okay.
thinking, I'm not saying Estevao was better than Yamal, but definitely on Tuesday
No.
night he was better.
Yeah, it was an incredible performance. And we referenced earlier that I think we've probably stopped laughing at you on The Guardian now about your Chelsea prediction. I imagine that hasn't been brought up for a few weeks. Went through a phase where it was brought up at every turn that it could be. There's actually a massive game. Chelsea at home to Arsenal. We mentioned earlier the title race. Chelsea win this, it does really, really open it up. And they're capable as well.
They are. Sorry. They are capable,
Right.
yeah. I mean, I think it's more the other way around, isn't it? That if Arsenal win, it's sort of you think this is over, because we're a bit now with Arsenal as we were with City at their absolute peak, where you look down the track and you're saying, are there actually any hurdles there? And they seem this season to have got over that habit they had of dropping points against mid-table sides. Arsenal was a great side for drawing at Fulham or uh, drawing against West Ham or getting beat by Villa.
Losing at Villa Park.
Yeah, that they had a capacity to. I give up cheap points is unfair, but drop points in games where maybe you weren't expecting them to. Whereas this season they just battered everybody aside. I mean, only 3 teams are taking points off them, and they're the 3 greatest teams in the country: Manchester City, Liverpool, and Sunderland.
And I've got to come to Villa in next weekend, week on Saturday. They've got to come
Which
to
is
Villa Park, which is a real bogey ground for them.
and it's a big game the way Villa are playing. Yeah,
Yeah,
Villa, after that, no wins in 6, have now won 9 of the last 11. So that is a tough game
yeah,
for them.
flying.
So
Yeah,
that
so it'd
is,
be a bit the next. Sorry, you carry on. I was going to say the next. Oh, well, actually, I'll say you carry on. Then, just as you're drinking a mouthful of water, and then I started to talk again. But the next 2 games for Arsenal in the Premier League, Chelsea and Villa. Well, there's a midweek. I think there's a midweek round of games actually thrown in next week as well. It's a big week. If they do come through that unscathed, then I think I'd be with you, and like no one's gonna be able to touch this. But it's certainly in Premier League terms, they've got some huge games coming up.
yeah, but I mean, if they win on Sunday, they'd be 9 points clear of Chelsea. I mean, City will probably beat Leeds, so that gap will remain at 7. But still, it's clear water. That means they can afford a slip up. And I think that might still be the issue with this Arsenal. That what are they like under pressure? And so far this season, they've responded to every slight little bump in the road. Last Sunday could have been difficult for them. That they dropped points at Sunderland. City suddenly were only 4 points behind, which just seemed impossible. How could City be that close to them? But then City lose on the Saturday night. They've got the North London derby, which turned out to be a very easy game for them, but could have been a tricky game. They're doing it without Gabriel, who you'd say, alongside Declan
Yeah,
Rice, has probably been the 2 most important players this season. And they absolutely battered Spurs, who were never in danger of not winning that game after the first sort of. I mean, I suppose it could have drifted to a 0-0 if they hadn't scored in the first half. But yeah, once they'd scored, they were totally on top. It was just a question. I mean, in some ways, 4-1 doesn't feel like a reflection of their dominance of that game. And it was a real sort of reasserting their authority performance. So it means they can afford games like Sunderland. They can afford games where they only get a point where they might have expected 3, because they have got that gap, and the pursuing team never gets close enough, and Arsenal can feel their breath on their neck.
Do you want to take you back? Obviously, this show's unplanned. We don't plan what we're going to talk about in terms of the topics, just the games. But a few weeks ago, and everyone was saying, "Oh, Caicedo v Rice." That seemed to be the en vogue thing to talk about. Who's better, Caicedo or Rice? You look back now, actually, the conversation should probably be who's better, Rice or Enzo, because they actually kind of play the game a little bit more in a similar way in terms of they both get forward. That should probably be the conversation rather than Caicedo against Rice.
Well, that's the difficulty that Enzo gives you, because he can play as an 8 or as a 10. So I think Chelsea's ideal midfield would be Lavia holding or Reece James holding, and then Caicedo as the 8 and Enzo as the 10. And I think against less opposition, they can play Cole Palmer as the 10 if he's fit. Now, obviously, they have to sort of juggle that around because Lavia's never fit, and this thigh injury looks like it could keep him out for several months again. But I think they would like it to be Caicedo rather than Enzo as the 8. But I mean, the fact that Enzo can cover in that position is a great asset for them to have. And I guess there's also, I was about to say it's you're comparing £200 million midfielders, but Enzo's also £100 million midfielder. So £100 million midfielders are good. Who knew?
Yeah, who knew? Who would have expected something like that to happen? Let's do our predictions then for this one then, Jonathan. I'll let you go first as the king of predictions. I've actually remembered to do mine this week, which is one up from last week. What have you gone for?
I've gone for Arsenal to nick it 1-0 with another goal for Eberechi.
I did notice that you called Eze to score the first goal in last week's predictions. Very, very unfortunate for you that you didn't come away with anything there. It can be unfortunate, the predictions league, as I'm finding out on a weekly basis. I've gone for title favourites Chelsea 2, Arsenal 2, with Enzo to score the first goal. I started to think maybe I just overcomplicate things here, because you've just gone for a steady 1-0 to the Arsenal. I feel like I've overcomplicated things here, and maybe that wasn't what I was doing at the start of the season.
Well, it sounds like you're second guessing yourself, which you tend to do.
I am. I'm all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know you don't
What I
care
do
about
is
fantasy football, but I've hit my slump in both.
what I do is I look at the game and I think, what do I think is going to happen here? And then that's my prediction.
I've completely forgotten the actor's name. It was very much like the scene from Extras. Ian McClellan. The words will be on script, and you will read them. That was very, that was very much like that. Let's what a show that is, by the way. Let's talk about West Ham v Liverpool. I mean, we've done Liverpool the last few weeks, but we have to keep talking about it. Really, another awful day for them. Losing, I mean, I know they've lost a lot of games recently, but I think losing 3-0 at home to Nottingham Forest, who kind of just had a new manager in as well, it's an appalling result, and they are in dire straits.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it's the first time they've lost back-to-back games 3-0 in 60 years. So
Terrible.
this is a pretty bad run. I mean, 6 defeats in 7 in the league, which, yeah, it's a Champions League form. It's sustaining them. The fact that they've had the win against, was it 5-0 or 5-1? It was 5-1, wasn't it, against Frankfurt, which is the only game where Katike and Isak have both started. So whether there's a clue there, the win over Real Madrid, but I don't know. The whole thing seems very, very. I don't know. There doesn't seem as much anger as you'd expect. And I know Graham Souness was talking about this earlier in the week, and I don't want to come across like Graham Souness going, players should be slapping each other in the face and getting sent off. I'm not saying that, but there's been an odd acquiescence to it, and I do wonder. And this is such a hard thing to talk about because it feels so inappropriate to invoke a tragedy when you're talking about the form of a football team. But whether that isn't the after effects of the death of Diego Jota, that somehow there's not quite the focus, not quite the emotional energy there that there might be. Maybe not. I don't know. It's impossible to tell. We probably shouldn't speculate about it. But I think we can't not be aware that that's there in the background. They've obviously made a huge number of changes as well for more straightforward footballing reasons, and that transition has proved quite difficult. As I think, actually, you change 5 or 6 players, it's always going to be difficult, especially when you're changing the style as well. I know Arsenal fans go, "Oh, we brought in more players than they have. Why are we not in transition?" Well, because you've got an established style of play, and you have bought players very intelligently to enact that style of play. Liverpool are changing their style of play. These are different situations. So maybe it will come good. I think Liverpool, the club, are still trying to say, look, we've got a load of really good, really young players. It'll all be fine next season. I guess the question is, what European competition are they in next season? Is Arne Slot still there next season? The good news for Slot is that he doesn't seem to be under pressure. There doesn't seem to be any twitchiness among the board. Fans still seem pretty patient with him. He himself is still speaking very calmly after games. He hasn't gone sort of all wild-eyed Gary O'Neill in the last days at Wolves. So probably at some point it'll turn around, but it's a bit like City last year. It's hard at this stage to know when that'll be.
Yeah, and to not be in the Champions League, given all that money that they've spent, is probably a real possibility at this point to not get top 4, not get top 5. And as I say, completely unthinkable to spend all that money in the summer and then not even fit. Like, obviously, you win the league, you win the league, brilliant. It's a trophy, you go down in history. But essentially, you finish first or you finish 4th or 5th, you still get in the Champions League. To not get in the Champions League would be unthinkable.
Yeah, and it sounds like they might be spending more money in January as well. I mean, Gay and Semenyo seem to be on their radar for January. Both of them, I think, are players they could do with. Maybe the logic is you do the spending now and spend the second half of the season bedding those 2 players in. And so
Like City last season.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the difference is City hadn't just spent 450 million quid in the summer.
True. No, they spent nothing.
But do your preparation for the following season, the end of this season. Maybe that makes some kind of sense. But as you say, the danger is they end up in the Europa League or the Conference League or nowhere. And maybe they think, actually, it's not great, but it's that's not terrible. It means they can focus more on the league next season. and then maybe they almost get a cheap European trophy at the end of the year. But I mean, obviously they would rather be in the Champions League.
Yeah, I will watch them, and there's a lot going on. I think Slot's made a lot of mistakes this season in terms of in-game substitutions and 3 right backs through a game. We've spoke about that kind of stuff before, but at this point now, like, he fundamentally does need to land on something and change something. And the one thing I can't believe he hasn't tried is Joe Gomez alongside Van Dijk. They've had a good partnership in the past. I know he's a little bit injury prone, but Konate, for me, needs taking out. Like, he's a serious problem in that back line at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's a slightly odd thing. I think they're paranoid about playing Joe Gomez in case he gets injured, because then they don't have any cover. But it's a bit like, I don't know. This is not the greatest analogy, but let me work through it. It's a bit like when you've got the sort of I don't know, your best jumper that you only wear on special occasions, and then 3 years later you realise you've never actually worn it, and it's got a bit dusty and gone out of fashion, and it's like,
Yeah, I like you said it's a bad analogy. I like that analogy.
well, except Joe Gomez is clearly not their best jumper. Yeah,
It's a
Van Dijk,
reliable jumper, isn't it?
he's a reliable jumper who has a tendency to kind of get holes and kind of needs mending quite a lot and has to be taken out of the
Yeah, that's true.
wardrobe rotation. And but it almost feels like they'd rather have him in the wardrobe rotation than actually wear him. And then so why have you got him if you're not going to wear him? So I do understand the sort of the anxiety about the lack of cover, but that just shows how ill-conceived some of their squad building in the summer was. That they've left themselves in that position. They're letting Jarell Quansah leave looks like a really bad idea at this juncture. Now, if they do bring in Gay in January, obviously, that does give them the extra central defender. Yeah, I think, even if they had another holding midfielder, you could use Gravenberch at least temporarily as a centre back. But they've just left that back half of the side really exposed. And then, of course, the other thing they've got coming up is a Cup of Nations, which I think could do Liverpool a favour because it takes Salah away. And it means you can experiment with playing without Salah, without that danger of, you get beat having dropped Salah, and the first question in the press conference is going to be, why did you leave Salah out? Was this a mistake? Could Salah have scored that chance after an hour that whoever missed? So, I think by the end of January, both because of the transfer window and because of the Cup of Nations giving him a Salah-free month, things might look a bit clearer.
Is there anything in the Salah signing a new contract and form falling off? I know Carragher was talking about someone else than Van Dijk needing to come out and speak, and Salah was all happy to speak when he wanted a new contract, and they win games, and then at the moment they're losing. It's Van Dijk coming out every week. But is there anything in the contracts, players signing new contracts and form falling off, especially in Salah's case?
I think it's really hard to tell. I mean, I speak to somebody who is on an annual contract at The Guardian. Does my form get better in the few weeks before signing the new deal? I don't think so.
I think you'd be like an article just before putting it out. You'd be like, "This has got to be a good one." You wouldn't be like, if you weren't sure about it, I don't think you'd put it out.
I think you give me far too much credit.
No, okay.
Is it long enough? It'll do. Send. I mean, I genuinely don't know. I mean, this is something that I think is really difficult for us as non-professional footballers to get in the mindset, get in the mentality. Obviously, their contracts mean a huge amount, but when you're actually in the middle of a game, is that on your mind? Kind of, I better track this fullback today because there could be an extra 10 grand a week riding on it. Is that actually motivating them? I don't know. And is it one of those things we just sort of notice when it happens that, I mean, Viduka was famous for every time he signed a contract, his form dropped off. But is that just coincidence that we notice it because it's true in that case? That his form did drop off after he signed a contract? I don't know. I'm kind of. I mean, maybe maybe it's in training rather than in games that when they're in that final year or when they're negotiating, they're really driving themselves in training, and that then leads to better performances in games. and maybe they do sort of just drop the level by 10 or 20% when they feel secure, when they don't feel quite as motivated. But I've never really sort of heard anybody explain this in a way that I'm totally convinced by.
Okay, fair enough. I've got to ask the question. I felt like I had to ask the question.
No,
I'm
no,
going to
and,
ask
and the
this next
fact
one more transport. Oh,
the fact that Jamie Carragher's raising it, he obviously is a former professional player, so he will
yeah,
have a far better insight into how they think than we do. So maybe that genuinely is how they think.
yeah, guess so. Now, I'm going to maybe take you back to our previous podcasting days here with this question. So I'm not sure whether you're going to like it or not. I use this mantra quite a lot in life. Like if I'm asked to do something, I'll be like, what would Jonathan Wilson do here? In terms of Liverpool, have you had to pick an 11? What would Jonathan Wilson do? Like you did away at West Ham this weekend. Things aren't going well. You're in. Arne Slot says, Jonathan, you're picking the team today. What are you doing?
Are they? Is everybody's fit? Everybody's in form? Are they?
Well, let's go with just the current circumstances now. Slot's asked for some guidance. He wants a football expert, and he's giving you the nod to come in and he's asked Jonathan, what would you do this weekend against West Ham? What 11 would you pick?
I'd be very tempted to go if they're fit, and we'd have no real idea how fit they are. But if they are fit, I'd be very tempted to go with the front two if I could take and Isak, maybe with Wirtz behind, and keep it pretty narrow.
Diamond.
A diamond. My concern then, from a defensive point of view, is that ceding the flank to Jared Bowen. So we'd have to work out. I'd probably play Andy Robertson on the left, which is a slightly more defensive presence than Kirkers. You've got no choice but to play Van Dijk, and I guess you could bring in Joe Gomez. I think I'd probably play Conor Bradley on the right. So it's a pretty conservative back four. Is Alisson fit? I think he is back, isn't he?
Yeah, he played it. Yeah, he played.
Yeah. So Alisson, and then it's the familiar midfield three of Gravenberg and McAllister and Soboslai. But then I think I would chuck in the three big signings all at once as a sort of like, well, your preview worth it if they are fit. But I'm not sure Isak's fit is the problem. So I would
He
have to have a
played
look at
him,
them.
but he could have played. He could have played Ekitike against Forest, and he picked Isak, who barely played in the international break, to my knowledge, and didn't go with Ekitike, who to me always feels like the form striker of the two. Which is that when I say he's making his own problems, that kind of thing is
Yeah,
paramount.
and you've always got the. I mean, that is leaving Salah out, which is it's easy for me to say from here and harder when you have to deal with it and deal with the week in week out. Maybe he's looking at Salah in training and this lad's brilliant. He's in great form, and it will eventually translate to the pitch. Um,
You could say I'm
yeah,
preparing for AFCON. I've not got you for 6 weeks or whatever. So I'm gonna try something without you. Prepare for AFCON.
well, you could, or you could just tell him the truth and say you've been rubbish this season, son. Like, have a break.
And he'd be like, Jonathan, but we've all been rubbish. It's not just me.
Well, I'd say speak for yourself, Mohammed. I've been fine. I'm happy with my work. If you're not happy with yours, you've got to look in the mirror and ask yourself some questions.
I'm really enjoying pretending to be Mo Salah talking to Jonathan Wilson in the Anfield changing rooms there. A lot of the thought of you going in at Liverpool as well and just straight away just dropping their biggest name player.
I
You're
mean, the
not here.
problem is
Jonathan Wilson's not here to make friends.
it feels a little bit Steve McLaren and David Beckham, doesn't it? And that didn't end well. So maybe
Yeah.
that's not the best idea.
Yeah, you begging Mo Salah back with your tail between your legs in a few weeks' time. Let's talk about West Ham then. Nuno stabilised things, giving them a shot at staying up now. I would say you can see they're starting to move up towards the teams that they were behind and start to move away from danger. And from their point of view, I mean, they're hopeless at I said Upton Park, then I've gone back in time. They're hopeless at home bar when they're playing against Newcastle. And they beat someone at home, someone the week after at home as well. I think they did. But generally, they've been hopeless at home for the last year or so. But they'll now be looking at Liverpool at home and thinking, oh, good chance for us to win here.
Oh, it's a good time to play Liverpool, no question, and to get the home game against them as well.
Big Burnley as well, sorry.
Burnley, yeah, that's right. Yeah, so there's and they'd be frustrated they didn't get the result against Bournemouth last week. I mean, you had to have the lead like that and then not win the game. There's very odd sort of rumblings of discontent or discontent's the wrong word of sort of friction between Nuno and certain directors. So I don't quite know what's going on there. But West Ham's just a really miserable place. There's always seems to be discontent there, which I guess is a function of the board. But yeah, they're on a decent run. They're playing much better than they have been, and they're playing a big side. And yeah, I think when you play a big side like that, when you play the champions, that does have a galvanizing effect. I think whatever discontent West Ham are feeling, it shouldn't come out when you're playing Liverpool at home. And it is a wounded Liverpool, so you've got an opportunity. So this is pretty much a perfect set for West Ham, because even if they don't win, it's Liverpool, it's the champions. So were you really expecting it anyway?
Yeah, I've not heard about that discontent with the board, and it doesn't surprise me. But I've not heard about it. Is that I think there's is that in the libero circle rather than I can never say that word either. Is that in the libero circle rather than the 1992 circle, which is essentially just me and you?
I'm not sure where I heard it from actually. No, I don't think it was.
Because not many people are listening or watching this at the moment, I do get a sense that the shackles are off, and you maybe would say something on this podcast that you wouldn't say in another podcast necessarily sometimes, because you've just freely said that. I've not heard that anywhere. So that's new information. That's exclusive information to the 1992 podcast, Jonathan.
I don't think it is exclusive. I think other people are talking about it. So, but anyway, um, their reports. Yeah, who knows? Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But yeah, there was sort of sometimes you hear a rumor and you just think that's nonsense. Sometimes you hear a rumor and you go, yeah, that does feel like it could be true. It's one of the latter.
Yeah, look, it's got a chance, especially with January coming up as well, because I'm sure West Ham were planning to spend money, thinking they might be further cut adrift than they are. And Nuno would have been told when he went in there that he'd get money to spend in January. But you do get the feeling with West Ham's board that if let's say they're outside of the relegation places come January, that maybe they could renege on things that they'd said previously. That does feel like a West Ham board thing to do, and the falling out could be on the cards. I actually predicted at the start of the season, before a ball was kicked, that West Ham would go through 3 managers this season.
Oh well, you're 2/3 of the way there.
I'm better at those predictions than I am at score predictions that are actually something that I have to do every single week.
Well, and one of us predicted Forest to be the first club to sack their manager this season as well.
Oh, I said that Nuno would leave as well. But anyway, it's not a competition. It's not a competition, except for in the predictions league where it is a competition. And talking to that predictions league, Jonathan, can I have your West Ham v Liverpool prediction, please?
2-1 to Liverpool, Ekitike.
I've also gone 2-1 to Liverpool, and hopefully Jonathan Wilson doesn't go in and get that consultancy role, because I've gone for Mo Salah to be the first goal scorer in that game. Let's do our other predictions and the wider predictions of the games that we're not covering them before we do 5 minutes on Crystal Palace v Manchester United. So Brentford v Burnley, Jonathan. I've gone for 2-0 to Brentford with Igor Thiago to be the first goal scorer.
No, exactly the same.
Wow, that bodes well. I might get a point there, but it will mean absolutely nothing. City v Leeds, Jonathan.
2-0 to City, Haaland.
3-0 to City, Haaland. Sunderland v Bournemouth, Jonathan. On mute, so I'll go first. Sunderland v Bournemouth. I've gone for Sunderland 1, Bournemouth 1 with Tavernier, whose name I always say wrong, to be the first goal scorer. My light's just gone off again. So yeah, 1-1 Sunderland Bournemouth.
I've gone 1-0 to Bournemouth, Semenyo.
I knew he'd predict Sunderland to lose again. Everton v Newcastle, Jonathan.
1-0 to Everton and Jai.
I've gone Everton 1, Newcastle 1, Bruno Guimaraes to score the first goal. Spurs v Fulham. I've gone 2-0 to Spurs. Richarlison, lovely goal from him last week. Jonathan?
1-0 to Spurs, Richarlison.
On the similar track here. Villa v Wolves from you, Jonathan.
2-0 to Villa, Ollie Watkins.
I've gone for 3-0 to Villa, John McGinn to be the first goal scorer there. Stop predicting Ollie Watkins to score the first goal. It's not happening. It's just not on the cards this season at all, it appears. You're sticking with that, and you're sticking with Sunderland losing every week. And then Forest v Brighton. I've forgotten who went first last time. I think it was you. So I'll say I've got Forest 1, Brighton 2. I'm not sure what made me do that, with Danny Welbeck to score the first goal.
I've gone 1-1, Chris Wood.
Chris Wood, is he playing? Is he back? I don't remember him.
He scored last week.
Anfield? No.
He scored last week.
Anfield? No. It was the two defenders and Gibbs White.
Oh, okay. Well, that's well. There's a chance for you.
Well, you can't change it.
No, fine.
Yeah, there we go. I mean, yeah, I mean, you were very unlucky last week with your Fulham prediction actually, because you went Fulham to win 1-0, but just picked the wrong strike. Obviously, you picked the one that wasn't fit, but that was an unlucky prediction from you last week. Let's do 5 minutes on Crystal Palace v Manchester United. Let's start with Palace. I watched them against Wolves on Saturday afternoon. I had a great day of football on Saturday because the wife was out watching 3 games in a row. Some of the best Saturdays of your life. And your wife goes out and you get to sit at home and watch 3 games. Brilliant.
My missus is away this weekend, so my Saturday will be just watching football at home, and then I'm doing the West Ham Liverpool game
brilliant.
on Sunday. So yeah, it's going to be great.
It's an incredible feeling. It's an incredible week, and I had the time of my life. I had my pick of which game to watch at 3:00, and I chose Wolves to see what Rob Edwards was all about, and obviously watch Palace as well, who were a great team to watch. They won comfortably in the end, and I guess now after what happened to Manchester United on Monday night, going to Selhurst Park, you probably make Crystal Palace favourites for that one, and it's not even it wouldn't be a scalp, would it? Because they've won there a few times against Manchester United in recent years.
Yeah, and of course it's a battle of the 2-3-4-2-1 managers. One of them
does it very well.
Yeah, I think. So, I think the issue is that Palace don't need the ball. Palace are quite happy playing without the ball, and it's a good formation to absorb pressure and strike on the break. I think unless you've got one of your 3 centre backs is very comfortable stepping into the midfield, I think it's a formation that becomes really blockish really quickly. And I think you really saw that on Monday. That the complete refusal to change. I mean, even if he'd wanted to, even if Amram wanted to keep the shape, you could have played a midfielder in the back 3, and you could have said, "Look, we're going to keep the same shape, we're going to keep the same basics, but we'll have a midfielder who, when he gets the ball under no pressure, can just move 10, 12 yards forward and force an Everton player to come out." But as it was, he just kept passing the ball really slowly to Lenny Yoro, who kept stopping, looking about, and then playing a very simple ball out to his right. And that must have happened about 50 times. And every time that happened took 10 seconds. And the clock just runs down if you do that. So I think you saw the real problems of a manager who is so wedded to only doing things one way. And I just think it's a way that doesn't really work against a mass defence that's happy to let you have the ball. Which, what I don't understand about that is, it's Sporting. He must have come up against that apart from when they played Benfica or Porto. That must have been the standard. But maybe it's just his team was way better than the other 17 teams in the league, and they didn't need to really create things. Things would almost be created for them. But United was so flat on Monday, and all that sort of momentum they had with those 3 wins in a row, that just feels like that's disappeared.
It's 3 without a win now. Might even be 4 without a win now for them. So you're right. The momentum's completely been sapped, hasn't it?
I think they drew 2 in a row, and then the defeat. I think so. I think it's 3 games without a win in a row.
Yeah, I think
they drew at Spurs. Which was the other game they drew?
Forest.
That's right. Yeah. So 2-2 draws, and then the 1-0 defeat. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there was positives to take. There's definitely positives to take out that Forest draw. Probably to a lesser extent the Spurs draw, but they were 2-1 down, so it felt like a 0.1 in the end. But 0 positives to take away from them.
2-1 down with 10 men. Sheshko had to go off with injury, but they'd already used their subs.
Yeah, so that's fair.
So, both that game and the Forest game, what you'd say is they found themselves 2-1 down, and managed to find a late equaliser to get away with it. So, I don't know. Resilience is always one of those things that it's great as long as it's followed by success, but there is a reason why you're needing to be resilient, which is that things have gone wrong. So it's always a bit of a double-edged sword, I think, resilience.
Yeah, and there's no positives to take from Monday, though. Like, just pathetic. It can sometimes be difficult to play against 10 men, but you've got to give yourself some help. And like you said, they just gave themselves no help whatsoever. Never really looked like scoring massively. I didn't think Pickford obviously made a good save near the end, but Everton were comfortable with what Manchester United were doing. And now you do feel like once they lose a game, the pressure then suddenly seems to be really on Manchester United and Amorim, and that will be the case going to Selhurst Park, and it would be no surprise to see them lose at Selhurst Park.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I guess, the nature of modern football, it's the nature of United. Everything is massively exaggerated and amplified. So they win 3 games in a row, and suddenly it's, oh, United are back. And then they fail to win for 3 games. It's like, oh, it's a disaster. Well, it's not as bad as last season. That's what you probably could say, but there's still. I mean, Amorim said it himself. After the Tottenham game, he was out. 5 games unbeaten now. Is this a sign the corner's been turned? Because he'd used that analogy about a storm, and so I think he was asked, is the storm over? And he was just no. So he knew, that things were still going badly wrong. And I'm really not sure. I think they are better than last season. I think the signings have helped. But then you look at something like Xerxes, and you ask yourself, which Serie A team is he going to score 12 goals for? Look pretty good next season.
Oh, yeah, people want chances as well. Players who haven't been playing, a couple of them got the chances against Everton, did not take them. I don't know what the opposite is of taking a chance with both hands, but literally, I'm taking a chance with 0 hands. They were Xerxes just non-existent in that front line for Manchester United. Could get a reprieve and start again against Palace, but it wouldn't surprise me if he didn't. You didn't see him in the 11 at all. What's your prediction for this one, Jonathan?
2-1 to Palace, Mateta.
I've gone for 3-1 to Palace, Sarr. It was always going to be Sarr or Mateta for the first goal. I said about you being unlucky with the prediction last week. I was unfortunate. I called Pino to score the first goal for Crystal Palace, and he scored the second. So, I was a little bit unfortunate with that last week as well. Right, that does us, Jonathan. Unless you've got anything else you want to cover from your life, I'm very envious of your Saturday. That's an incredible Saturday.
I'm doing the Newcastle Literary Festival on Friday, so having to head up there. So seeing a mate on Thursday night, having an early Christmas dinner with an old school friend, and then Newcastle Literary Festival on Friday. So if people are around Newcastle Central Library at, I think it's 2:00 start, but I would check that. It's definitely on their website. I think it's £7 to get in. So do come and listen to me talking about the power and the glory, my new book on the World Cup. And even if you can't make it, it's an excellent Christmas present.
I was going to say, I'd be unlike you to not be shifting the book in some way. So I imagined it would be something to. Obviously, it's a literary festival, so I imagined you'd be doing something with your array of books there. You talking at that? Do you get to do a talk on anything?
Yeah, I'm being interviewed on stage. So I did it 2 years ago, Newcastle Literary Festival, on my book on the Charltons, which is also an excellent Christmas present. Biography of the Charlton brothers, Bobby and Jack. 2 huge figures in late 20th century British and Irish life. And I was a little bit uneasy because with the big in Newcastle, thinking, are any members of the Charlton family going to turn up? And obviously, if they do, the chance I'll be go, actually, you said that this happened at this Christmas dinner in 1947, but what really happened? And I sit down on the stage and I look out at this room. I don't know how many people there are, like 150, 180 people, something like that. And honestly, 80% of them were sort of 60-odd-year-old bald men. They were just like looking at a room full of Bobby Charltons. But then I guess just the vast majority of people in the northeast of a certain age do look like that. And it turned out none of them were members of the family, thank goodness. But then also there was my old English teacher, who I hadn't seen in 30 years. And she turned up to support the event. She taught me for 5 out of 7 years of senior school. And I would say is more responsible for my career than anybody else apart from me and my parents.
I imagine she's very proud.
Well, it was lovely to meet her. I'm really glad she came, and she did do you remember me? Well, of course I remember you. Kind of, I'd say I'm always a bit when you see people talk about teachers who have had a huge influence over them. I've always been a bit skeptical because, to be honest, none of my teachers really were that important to me. But if there were one, it would be her.
That's good. That's nice. I did a Villa event a couple of months ago, and my old business studies teacher came to watch it. Not proud of me. I've achieved absolutely nothing in business. I had no reason to be proud of me.
No
whatsoever.
Offense, but we are sort of in business together, and I'm saying you had more work to do there.
Yeah, he's still got work. Maybe I should speak to him. Actually, maybe I need to get onto him because we need more people to watch and listen to the podcast. Basically, we need some sponsors as well. I need to get better at clipping things up and putting them on social media. So I'm going to do that this week. So you might see some clips across X and Instagram. Jonathan's about to tell me off, or you look disappointed. It looks like my business studies teacher used to look.
I was. I was contemplating doing a Bob Geldof impression, asking for your money, but then I realised that would involve swearing, which would give us a higher rating, which is not good for the algorithm. So
you're so good at the algorithm nowadays, Jonathan.
Oh, it's all about the algorithm. Yeah,
yeah, so good. But maybe you should be doing the clips and the posting, Jonathan, if you're so good at it.
I'll give you the strategy. You enact it.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, I'll take that. It'd be better than the zero strategy that we have right now.
Part one, our plan: do some clips.
Yeah, I just thought doing a podcast with you, I thought it'd just speak for itself. I didn't think it would need to be pushed that much because you
got to graft, you got to drive. It's
right. I'm going to graft this week. You have my word. I'm grafting, and you're gonna see a difference. Even if it's just one more person watching, you're gonna see a difference this week from my graft. And my dad, I think my dad's only watched one of these shows, which is a disgrace.
Well, that's
and I'll test him now because he'll meet. Yeah,
like you can.
I'll test him now. I'm seeing him tonight.
Yeah. No, like yeah.
I've called him out, so if he doesn't mention it, then I'll know he hasn't watched.
If we've lost Bardell Senior, then the game's gone.
Yeah, we used to do podcasts, and used to come and there was a bad time in my life where I had to go back and live with my parents for a bit, and I was doing the podcast from there, and they were coming to say hello to you, weren't they? My dad was delighted to speak to you.
Well, yeah, those days are gone. Doesn't even listen to us. He doesn't write. He doesn't call.
We'll test him.
He doesn't even listen. Yeah,
well, let's see whether he says anything to me this week, and we'll talk about that on next week's edition of 1992. Bad news is, Jonathan, we might have to do 2 games. We have to do 2 podcasts next week because I think there's midweek games. We might have to do a quick half an hour on the midweekers.
Okay, well, we can try and squeeze that in. You might have to get.
We'll try and squeeze
that. Anything.
That's all I ever do when I do a podcast with you is get up early. I was so comfortable this morning in my bed when it felt freezing cold outside. But 8 o'clock's early for me. Just saying, I wouldn't get up and do a podcast at 8 o'clock for many people.
I mean, 5:45 up this morning, and that's one of my weekly lie-ins.
Wow, 5:45! What a man! Right, I can feel us losing subscribers and listeners actually as we've gone on in the last 5 minutes. So let's go, Jonathan. Thank you very much for joining me, and please, if you are listening or watching to this podcast, do all the things that you can do to help, and just tell all your friends and family about the podcast. If anyone in your life watches football, tell them this is the pod that you should be listening to or watching, and we'll see if we can get those numbers up. So what's left to do is to say this has been 1992. It's a goodbye from me and a goodbye from Jonathan Wilson too.